Hello there, happy Friday. My name's Dan. I'm a bit of a Warhammer nerd, and I like talking about this new old world game thing. This video, happy Friday by the way, I hope you're having a good one. This video, we're going to talk about a few rules amendments that I think need to be made. I think I've come across a few arguments about stuff. As you can see, I am trying to build a website for putting articles like this on, and something to contain. I'd like it to be like an interactive sort of meta thing where people can have a go at manipulating the data that I've collected, and maybe even input their own. That'd be pretty cool. As well as that, what I want to do as well is give people like a place where they can post their lists and I can comment on them. Or members of the community can, sign up and comment on people's lists and just sort of see if we can design the best list per faction in a sort of collaborative manner. That's kind of the idea, really. But yeah, let's talk about a few rules. The first one I want to talk about is this: drilled troops and marching columns charging. There seems to be quite a bit of debate about this one. Oh, nice. Sorry, my wife has made me a mocha out of stuff we've got in the kitchen. It's very tasty. Right. So what I've done here is a chap called Dave has supplied me with the text from the original Warhammer Ancient Battles. I knew it was somewhere, and if you see one of my previous videos arguing that these are the rules as intended, I did mention the Romans and the Napoleonic old guard. That kind of anyway, whatever. So this is the description from Warhammer Ancient Battles. So some troops in the Roman army are described as drilled. These troops have received extensive and prolonged training which allows them to change formation quickly and efficiently. A new number of special rules applies to drill troops as described below. At the start of movement, drill troops are allowed to turn or change formation by up to 2 ranks for free. Once they've taken the free turn or formation change, they make them move exactly as they ordinarily would. Blah 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 blah. Can charge or make a march move in the same turn. This is why I think that drilled troops are allowed to, whilst in marching column, not just this, rules as written, but also this sort of highlights rules as intended too. So you're allowed to declare a charge when you're in a marching column. You are then allowed to use drilled to expand your ranks. So not turn, and I don't, drop the turning part, I'd suggest. But wording like this just makes it really, really super clear that you're allowed to essentially put yourself in a marching column, declare a charge, and then use drilled to get back into a combat formation so that you can make that charge move. So that's just a brief aside, but hopefully we can start to put this one to bed a little bit. Split profile is a bit of a problem. So there are some magic items that are very, 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 very broken when put on a character on a dragon. There are, there's a few solutions to that particular rules issue. The first solution being to go through all the magic items and put infantry or cavalry only next to all the magic items and essentially reclassify them as infantry or cavalry only. There's a lot of effort doing that. Going through all the and that might be the route that they decide to go down. But I am, for instance, thinking about the bedazzled helm. I think -1 to hit on a dragon just makes it way too good. Stuff like a 4 ward on a dragon, the armor of destiny or whatever the hell it's called, that's a bit of a problem because you just basically double the wounds it's got. So if you're giving that to a dragon with like 8 or 9 wounds, you're just giving it sort of, that seems to be particularly egregious. So yeah, I think that I think this is a better way of doing it, and also kind of makes a bit more sense. So I've put rise. I've just spotted a spelling mistake. I think this works quite well. So aside from attacks made in the combat phase, rules that apply to the rider also apply to the mount. However, when up close and personal, targeting either the rider or the mount becomes easier. So when a player is attacking a model with a split profile rule, the defending player chooses which profile to use defensively. So for instance, if you're attacking a Chaos Lord and a Dragon, the defending player can elect to use the mount's weapon skill. The defending player chooses who's essentially putting their body on the line. Can use the mount's weapon skill, toughness, and armor save, or one of the rider's weapon skill, toughness, and armor. So that means if you've got, for instance, if you're the Tomb King, you've got to re-roll successful wound rolls against me. You can choose to, so you get that armor rule because that's attached to the rider. However, that only your opponent then has to roll to hit against the rider, and then they have to roll to wound against the rider. So they're probably still gonna be wounding on sixes quite often, but if it's like another dragon coming swinging at you, they're likely to be strength 6. So they're going to be wounding on 3s because you're toughness 5 and re-rolling 3s. So it just means that monsters against monsters, because 3s re-rolling successes means essentially that how many actually go through. So if you rolled, so it's 2/3, so it's 2/3. It's 2/3 of 2/3, isn't it? So it's 4/9, so it's about half, right? Whereas a half of a half is a quarter, obviously. So if it's 3s re-rolling, then about half go through, and if it's 4s re-rolling, a quarter go through. If it's 5s re-rolling, then a ninth goes through. So what is that? 11.11 recurring percent, I think. Yeah, and then so you go from basically 4/9 is 0.4 recurring, so 44.4% down to 25%, down to 11%. 6 is re-rolling is 1 out of 36, which I forget what the percentage is for that, but it will be around about, what will it be? It will be 2.7%, something like that. Anyway. So, 6 is re-rolling, almost impossible to get a wound off. 5's re-rolling, it's 10%, so it still is realistic, whereas 6 is re-rolling is totally unrealistic. So, I don't think they meant to make invulnerable dragons, right? So, if you choose the rider, you're essentially the rider's weapon skill, toughness of 5 in the case of the, and whatever cool armor they've got. So that means, do you want to use toughness 6? So, by toughness I mean like the rider's modified toughness, modified by the mount. I'm saying that's the mount's toughness. So do you want to use toughness 6 and the 4+ full plate from the mount? So yeah, this includes the effects of the armor. For instance, if the Lord had a bedazzling helm, the -1 to hit and +1 save would only apply if the defending player chose the rider to defend the attacks. Ward and regen saves that apply to the rider also apply to the mount. I should have put and vice versa. When attacking, unless specifically stated, special rules that apply to the rider do not apply to the mount and vice versa. In the combat phase. What that does is it means that Bretonnian warhorses still get countercharge, and you still, because I think part of the problem is that maybe this rule was introduced as a last minute thing, because they're like, well, we don't want lords on foot to have countercharge, Bretonnian lords on foot to have countercharge. So what we need to do is give it to the mount, and then they're like, yeah, but if you give it to the mount, the rider doesn't get it, do they? And they're like, okay, well, let's invent this split profile rule so the rules like transfer across. And what they didn't think of is, high elf princes on dragons, or a high elf lord, prince, king, whatever. High elf prince on dragon has, strikes first, always strikes first, so that's initiative 10. Well, under split profile rule, now so does the dragon. The dragon's also striking at initiative 10. I don't really think they meant that. I do think my will be done on like a Kemrian prince. I do think they meant that to apply to so if the prince is on a bone dragon or whatever, I do think they meant the bonuses to apply to the rider and the mount in that circumstance, because the rules are written that kind of says that anyway. Whereas I really don't think they thought split profile through. Like, for instance, this Chaos Lord on the dragon, give it Bedazzling Helm and the Mark of Nurgle, right? You're going to be hitting it on, at best, 5s, because, it's a high... The Chaos Lord is a high weapon skill, beast. His weapon skill 7 or 8. So, there's very few things that... His weapon skill 7, sorry, but there are very... And also he's got Eye of the Gods as well. So by the time he gets into combat, he's probably going to be weapon skill 8 or maybe even 9. So most of the time you're going to be hitting it on 5s and re-rolling 6s. So... what that means is 1 in 6 goes through straight away, and then a third of a sixth go through later. Yeah, so we just add that up. So a third of a sixth is 1/18. So it's 4/18. So that's 2 ninths. So 22% of hits go through against that Chaos Lord. 22%. It's basically about 1 in 5, right? So 22%. That's just nuts. I don't think they meant that to happen. And then you're rolling to wound against, against toughness 6, and then the thing's got like probably a 2-up save and a 5-up ward, and I don't think you can quite. You can, maybe. So it just makes that model just unkillable. Basically, it's just dumb. Like, I don't think they're meant to do that. I can't remember what other janky stuff I've come across, but yeah, the spells need just a general review anyway. Right, so that's split profile. I think that's quite an elegant way of fixing the problem, in that split profile works apart from in the combat phase, and then the person defending gets to pick what stat line defends against the attacks, basically. So that means that, ridden monsters are expensive, but it just gives you a bit of flexibility. Like, do I want toughness 6 and a fairly rubbish armor save, because most mounts have, 4-up or 5-up, or do I want my Chaos Lords, harder to hit but easier to wound, and he has more armor? So which profile do I want to use defensively, right? I mean, the other option, because you also, it's not just toughness that's the problem. It's the panoply of effects that you can give your there are other things that are super janky that I just can't remember. I'm a bit tired. I've had a really, really busy week at work. It's been great, but tiring. Anyway, Killing Blow Monster Slayer, I think, are too impactful. They're cool. Like, if this were like a narrative sort of skirmishy sort of game, then they would be really, really cool. Or like a role play sort of, whatever. Or if this were like Mordheim or Necromunda or something like that. These abilities as written, like, they are cool because they don't really come off very often. However, much like with the split profile rule, if you, for instance, have, given your Duke, Monster Slayer, his steed also gets it, and that might be a Royal Pegasus with loads of attacks. So, under rules as written currently, I think that they should be changed to make them essentially characters that have Killing Blow and characters that have Monster Slayer, just make them more reliable. So rather than them being like a bit like our Archaon Slayer of Kings, you know, if you roll a double 6, then the thing's dead, and then they realised that was too impactful in Age of Sigmar, and then they had to write a load of characters that were basically immune to that, and made it harder to get the double 6, such that it's basically just not a rule anymore, like, because you can't rely on it, and it just doesn't really do anything. He's only got 4 attacks. There's no ways of increasing his attacks and so on and so forth. I'm talking about Archaon and Age of Sigmar, but you know, the point is they had this like super OP ability that they thought was really unreliable. Then people worked out a way to make it reliable, and by God, I did get it pretty reliable at one stage. But like, you know, so Killing Blow, Monster Slayer, too impactful. Killing Blow should apply to anything that isn't monstrous. So I don't get how Killing Blow works on ogres, because like, you know, it's essentially just Killing Blow is supposed to like be reflective of somebody who's like supremely accurate with a blade and can just like, you know, nip a jugular, or you know, really really super good at wounding their opponent, right? Ogres, you don't require finesse to kill an ogre. You can't just gradually chip down an ogre. There's too much fat in the way, you know what I mean? You can't just like nip an artery, because the artery is contained behind a shitload of muscle and fat, and tense muscles actually really difficult to cut through. Anyway, in fact, you know, not tense muscle, like when you're carving your, you know, your chicken or whatever, it's actually quite difficult to, it's not, you have to sharpen the knives really 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 super sharp. Imagine trying to sort of nip through, you know, a leather coat on top of, you know, it's just, I think people misunderestimate how protective like a leather gambeson actually was. Anyway, so I'm waffling on there really, but I think Killing Blow should represent that kind of accuracy and the ability to like find their way around armor, but just make them more reliable. The 2-up, that could be a 3. Like, I'm not, you know, I think possibly a 3, maybe. But anyway, so Killing Blow should apply to anything that isn't monstrous, meaning monstrous infantry, monstrous cavalry, monsters, and behemoths. Monster Slayer therefore affects the monstrous creatures. So these are monstrous creatures, and therefore Monster Slayer works against them. Killing Blow works against anything that isn't monstrous. At the moment, there's this weird kind of dead zone in between Killing Blow and Monster Slayer called chariots. So neither Killing Blow nor Monster Slayer applies to chariots at the moment, inexplicably. You know, again, I suppose Killing Blow, that represents you can't just chop the head off a chariot and it all die. And Monster Slayer, it's not like one blow can destroy a chariot. Like, I kind of get it, but like also not. Yeah. So I would say both should be mounted against models of this type. So the target model, so monstrous stuff for Monster Slayer, Killing Blow, everything else. Attacks always wound on 2+. I've put at least. I think I originally put 3+, and then I deleted it and put 2+, and then I left the word at least. And the defending model does not get armor or regen save. If the attacks are made with the model with split profile, the profile of the mount is determined which rule applies. So, you know, if you're on a horse, it's still Killing Blow. If you're on a dragon, Monster Slayer. Okay? But always wound on a 2+, no armor save. Maybe that's a bit too reliable. Maybe that should be like 3+, maybe. I don't know. But I think that this is just an FAQ wish list. Like, I'm not saying the game's broken or I have a problem with Killing Blow and Monster Slayer. I quite like those rules. I think they're very characterful, they're very flavorful, but, you know, the problem is, like, you know, you charge a scorpion into a 75-point scorpion into a dragon, get lucky with a 6 to wound, and the dragon's just dead. And, like, it just seems like that 75-point model. I mean, again, I know it's not reliable because he's probably going to be hitting on 4s, and then he needs a 6 to wound. So like the chances of that actually coming off are like, what are they? Yeah, like 1 in 24, give or take. So about 4 or 5% chance of that coming off, I think. But you know, charge 2 of them in, you're getting that up to like 10% maybe. I think there's a way of making them a bit more reliable. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. The point is that this is like, it's just too swingy. It changes a game too much based on a dice roll, and I want the game to be more about skill and strategy than about just getting lucky dice rolls, because that's lucky dice rolls winning games is actually quite boring from a game mechanic perspective, from the perspective of a player. Like, just somebody rolls a 6 and then you lose the game is like, oh well, I can't do anything about that. That's just a bit dumb. You know, I mean, it's all right, like with a computer game, because you can like do stuff about it. You can go back to a previous save or whatever. But this way seems a bit. I'm not sure about that. So I think they should just be made to be this makes a character, you know, or a unit or whatever, just more reliable. I quite like cleaving blow as it is, like a 6 to wound, like you get no armor save. I kind of get that with a cleaving blow style attack. That's fine. Although I'd move cleaving blow into the universal special rule section, because loads of models have cleaving blow, so it should be a USR as far as I can tell. So what's the problem here? It's specifically a problem with the Necro Sphinx, but also a problem with that there are other models that this kind of rule applies to, and that it just, I don't think that they meant this. So Necro Sphinx, the rule description says that so the Necro Sphinx has 2 weapon profiles, one of which is pretty standard monster weapon, like strength 5, AP 2, something like that, and then it also has another weapon profile that's strength 10 and AP 3 or 4, and I think it's got armor bane as well. And basically, what they're trying to like emulate is a flurry of strikes with this sort of other thing, and then like one big sweep at the end. However, the way that they've written the extra big sweep attack is this model may make 1 additional attack with this weapon. Now, because it's a weapon that's listed in the model's weapons and it's just a weapon profile, that means, rules as written, the Necro Sphinx can make all 5 attacks with this strength 10 AP 4, you know, just monster destroyer. Oh, and also it's got monster slayer as well, so a 6 to wound, you know. So essentially, you've just, yeah, and it then gets 1 additional attack with that profile. So it basically has 6. It's like getting hit by 6 cannons, basically. It's nuts. So these, you know, this should apply in general to any weapon profile that says it is an additional attack. This model means the model may only make 1 additional attack. I think players have got to use the common sense here. Like, for instance, if you read the wording around the tail on the Manticore, it says the model, what does it say there? It says the model can only make 1, or the model must make 1 attack with this. Yeah, it doesn't say at least, it just says must make 1 attack with this weapon profile. I think the problem is, like, lots of these like additional upgrades to monsters, like the Manticore's tail, it says you've got to make 1 attack with this profile, and that's fine. Because, you know, it's got 4 attacks, so if you give it an envenomed tail or whatever it's called, then you know, you've got 3 normal attacks and 1 with the tail, because it says it must make 1 attack, you know, or an attack. I can't remember exactly what the word is, but you know, that means just 1, doesn't it? Whereas the Necro Sphinx is this model may make 1 additional attack with this weapon profile. It doesn't say this model may only make 1 additional attack with this profile. It just says the model may make 1 additional attack. So again, that's just badly worded. That needs sorting. But I think additional weapon profiles, we should just be made clear that if a monster has 2 weapons, one of those is the main weapon for the majority of the attacks, and the other weapon profile is for a single additional attack, basically, or a single attack of that monster's attacks. I wish they'd have standardized it a bit beforehand, because having like one additional for the Necrosphinx and then one attack for the Manticore just doesn't make sense. Like, why not just have those like weapons upgrades as like an additional weapon, and then that becomes a thing, whereas at the moment they've created two things, two like legal concepts instead of one, when one would have done. So that needs, I'd like to see that tidied up. And then the last thing I'd like to see tidied up really is Plague of Rust. This came up in the Games Club, where, you know, Dave again pointed out to me, I think he'd watched the thing on Mountain Miniatures channel, the rules thing on there, which, to be honest, I've tried to listen to, but I don't know. It's not my style. It's not my cup of tea, or cup of mocha, as it were. It's just a bit too shouty, and you know, I'm a bit too relaxed for people shouting at me. Anyway, so Plague of Rust, as it stands at the moment, it's a modifier to your armor value, and ward saves have an armor value. So again, rules as written, the Plague of Rust not only worsens your armor value, but it also worsens your ward armor value, because the ward save is an armor value, and the ward save functions like, I don't know why, like, they didn't just make it like attacks that target this unit improve their AP by 2. You know, something like that, because then that just makes sense. And AP is a mechanic you've already got. I don't get why, when we already have a mechanic that affects armor values called AP, why you need to do things that affect armor values differently other than as AP. You know, because it's just confusing and annoying. Like, another thing that I think is also wrong is dangerous terrain checks. Like, you still get to make an armor save against it because you suffer a wound, and you make an armor save when you suffer a wound. So, you know, again, which kind of makes sense, because if you fall down a mountain through a load of trees, if you're wearing full plate armor, yes, you're a bit heavier, but also, like, the armor will protect you from the trees and snagging branches and roots and stuff. So again, I get why that, but I mean, what they really should do is, next to that rule, put, and the model may now make an armor save as normal against this wound. Whereas it's unclear whether it just means basically a wound, no armor save, like, well, basically like Age of Sigmar, mortal wound you take if you know. So other game systems, basically rolling a 1 for terrain causing wounds is basically no armor save. That's a pretty standard rule across Warhammer. So did they mean for this one to be different? And if so, they probably need to put that. And I think that's the other thing, really. They've written this rule set with something in mind, but they've not been sensitive to the expectation of the gamer based on the other game systems. So I think that's one. They need to go through all the rules. And I definitely will do a rules video at some point, which is going to be really, really super long. So I need about 3 hours spare to record it, but I will do one at some point, because I need to go through all the rules and sort of rethink the writing of the rules given the mindset of the player, because it is actually a really good game where skill really, really, really does matter. You know, dice rolls don't normally lose games. Like the stories I had from the tournament a few weeks ago, I mean, according to the TOs, that kind of stuff was really rare. Like, it didn't happen very much. Like, crazy stuff didn't tend. It's just me, I'm special, especially lucky, or not. But yeah, so, you know, I think it's a really good game, and it just needs a few little tweaks for these things. Essentially anything, like, you know, I mean, I think Spectral Doppelganger is going to be fixed. I'm only suggesting things that are a bit left field and a bit more elegant than a kind of brute force. All right, well, let's go through all the magic artifacts. Some things we're going to make cavalry only, some things we're going to make infantry only. And I'm like, yeah, but why? Like, there's another way. There is another way of doing it that essentially is a bit more elegant. And also, you know, you do want players to be able to, like, do stuff in their opponent's turn. That's one of the cool mechanics from Age of Sigmar. Everybody loves that about Age of Sigmar. So even something simple like choosing which weapon profile, which defensive profile you're using, you know, allowing players to make choices as frequently as possible makes for a really fun and engaging game. And I think this does that, as well as, you know, fix a potential problem, or at least diminish a potential problem anyway, rather than going through and saying essentially any suit of armour that's over 50 points is infantry or cavalry only, because it's like, that's just dumb and doesn't make any sense, like, narratively as well. So, you know, and if you're going to do that, you might as well just get rid of that armour, right? Because what's the point of really good armour that you can't take on your Mega Killy Death Lord on a dragon, right? But anyway, these are just my ideas. Comment down below if there's anything else that you think I should cover off, and just let me know what you think to, you know, the website. There's, yeah, these are, again, I started this website, you know, for AOS, and it was just like, you know, I've wrote this article on 19th of Jan. Let's just have a quick look at this. Look, I've put a thing that doesn't work there. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sorry, it's really boring content, isn't it? I'm watching some guy read an article he wrote a while ago and can't remember. Cool. Right, so that's that. Oh, I don't want to show you that. Yeah. Don't show you that either. Yeah, I'm using Wix, by the way. Cool. Right, anyway. Oh, bugger. Oh, there was something else I wanted to show you, which is, oh God, it's been such a long week. What was the other rule that somebody was talking about that needs amendment? Oh, yes, sorry, rambled on again. Spectral Doppelganger. So there are a few spells that, you know, I think that there's some pretty obvious fixes. So the reason I've done the list that I have is basically because, like, you know, I think these are pretty obvious fixes, to be honest. I think in general, like, a lot of the hexes should have increased range, so you actually get them off. Like Gathering Darkness, that's really good, but like 12-inch range is just not tremendously effective. It is only cast on a 9, but like still, because I think the thing is, like with the hex, you do that before moving, so you know, I'd prefer a conveyance and an enchantment to be done in the hero phase, and then hexes, vortices, and magic missiles to be done in the shooting phase. That would make more sense, really, than the way around they are. But that would require all of the spells to be rewritten, so it's not going to happen. But that would make more sense to me. Either that, or they just make hexes a bit longer range. You know, Word of Pain is okay. 18 inches is okay. But like 12 is just a bit too short, really, for it to come up properly. Plague of Rust, we've talked about. It's got a really long range, quite a low casting value, and if this is -2 to armor and to ward saves, and it can target a spelling an enemy engaged in combat, like, that is megally good for like just a 9 casting value. Absolutely insane. High magic, like, which one is it? Walk Between Worlds, that's until the start of that, just, you know, ethereal and reserve move, that's just is so good. I mean, it's not game breaking, but it is really, 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 really super good. There was one, maybe it wasn't in this law. Yeah. Spectral doppelganger, like suffers 2d6 hits, resolves using the characteristics and special rules of the caster and of any weapon they carry, and of this should be amended to as if made by a single hand weapon that the model might carry, because there are too many super good weapons that I mean, everybody's got access to a super good weapon, but not everybody's got access to illusion. So if you've got illusion and you've got like an absolutely nuts weapon, you can make it just like you know. And also miasmic mirage is also just ridiculous because and cannot march or charge. So you know, somebody's wound their infantry unit up for a charge. I mean, I suppose it's cast on an 11, so it's pretty difficult to get off. So it's not reliable. But again, this is one of those things where a dice roll could win a game, and I don't like things where dice rolls can just win a game on their own. Because you know, somebody's got their unit of infantry in range, you just cast that, stop them from charging, and then next turn you can charge all your cavalry into them, blah 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 blah. Like, it's just a bit too good. All the range should be like massively short. I don't know. There's something about that I just don't like. I mean, maybe it's because I'm a chaos player and I don't like being told not to charge, but you know, that's really sexy necromancer, isn't it? That's a bit odd for a necromancer to be so like supermodelish. Anyway, it's interesting, isn't it? So battle magic is a bloke, demonology is some Zinchi thing, so not really a clue, probably a bloke. That's a beastman. Lady. Possibly lady. Definitely lady. Definitely lady. Orc. Right, anyway. Well, they're ticking boxes there, aren't they? Right. Shut up, Dan. Nobody wants to hear that. Right. The target enemy suffers -1 movement to movement weapons. What was the other one that was a bit broken that I thought was a bit broken? Yeah, I think Spirit Leech is a bit like... Because it's only cast on an 8 and it does a lot for something that's only cast on an 8. Like, maybe cast on an enemy unit engaged in combat. I think that's okay, because like if you've trapped an enemy in combat, like using this to break them just seems a bit like it's just a bit much. Bearing in mind like psychology is so big in this edition. Oh, I forgot Here We Go was by 3. Oh my god, that's so much better. What's the other one that was really good? Yeah, reroll hit of one and reroll. So all of that together, Evil Sunshine and Here We Go. Absolutely brilliant. Like, I'm not sure that all of that together would be game breaking though, even though it is quite a lot. But it's not necessarily game breaking. We'll have to see what happens when orcs get released. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, if you... Well, just look at Ogre Blade. If you hit somebody's Spectral Doppelganger, that hits 2d6 times, right? it's just insane. It's just insane. And then, like, you know, that on a dragon, Fort Ward on a dragon, this on a dragon, just nuts. You know, there's a lot that's anyway. I'm just going to stop waffling on now. I think I've said enough really. But there are, you know, the rules that I've gone through and the rules that I put on my website as like a wish list for an FAQ are the ones that I think, you know, where there is a fairly elegant solution. It's maybe some areas that, you know, rules writers haven't necessarily spotted as being wrong. And also, I just wanted to talk about drilled again because, like, we've had that conversation so many times. But, you know, to me, it's rules as written. But some people are like, you can't charge when you're in marching column, and I'm like, I know, but at the point at which you charge, you're not in marching column. But anyway, I'm going to start waffling now and probably go to bed because I'm feeling really tired. Anyway, hope you have a good weekend. Toodles.